Hello boys and ghouls, and welcome to Euphemisms, the review. This movie deals with a lot of controversial topics, and because I don't want to risk getting flagged, I'm going to be relying on a lot of euphemisms for this one. And on that same vein, even though I don't usually put trigger warnings before my videos, because I mean, come on, this is a horror channel, things are gonna get weird at some point. I am going to be putting a trigger warning before this one. A Serbian film deals with issues of rape, including childhood sexual abuse and incest. So although I'm going to try to discuss these things as lightly as possible, there is still the possibility that it could be harmful if you've ever experienced something like this. You have been warned. And now, with that lovely opening out of the way, make sure that you subscribe to this channel and click that little bell thingy to get notified. I post regular movie reviews and gameplays, all with a horror theme to them. So trust me when I say that you won't want to miss what's coming. Don't believe me? Stick around to the end of the episode to find out what movie I'll be discussing next time. Or, you know, skip to the end of the episode if you don't think you can stomach this one. And now, a Serbian film. Released in 2010 in, you guessed it, Serbia. This movie was met with a lot of controversy. It was banned in 46 countries, including Spain, Germany, Australia, and Norway. And if that wasn't eyebrow-raising enough, the Sitges Film Festival in Spain refused to screen the film, accusing it of being child pornography, before rescinding the claim and acknowledging that it was just a fictional horror movie. Before viewing the film, I knew it by reputation. It was supposed to be one of the most disturbing viewing experiences possible, so much so that I didn't know if I could stomach it. There are very few lines that I won't cross when it comes to horror movies, but there is one. I cannot handle graphic depictions of child abuse, and especially childhood sexual abuse. So regardless of whether the Sitges Film Festival rescinded their remark, that was still enough to keep me away from this film for years. But I was recently convinced to, give it a chance. Prove my mettle as a horror fan by showing that I can sit through the absolute worst that this genre has to offer. And you know what? I did just that! Do I regret it? Let's get into that now. So the movie opens up on our protagonist, Milos. You know all those action movies where someone was like some big, important spy or assassin or something, but he left that life behind so that he could get married, start a family, but now someone from his past has shown up and they're asking him to come back for some big, important reason? Well, that's Milos, except he wasn't a spy or assassin. He was a porn star. Oh, wait, not a porn star. A, professional hugger. He just liked to hug people a lot, especially in front of cameras and while his co-stars were wearing very revealing outfits. And apparently, he had a reputation for being a really rough hugger, bringing his co-stars nearly to the breaking point before reining it in and showing them a touch of affection. People from his old life even compare Milos to an artist, assuring him that he was the best at what he does, but Milos himself seems to have no fond memories of the biz, being very happy with his new life with his wife and child. An old co-star of his introduces him to Vukmar. Yes, I'm going to be butchering a lot of pronunciations in this episode, deal with it. Vukmar is a director offering Milos a lot of money, enough to set his family up for life, provided that he just come back and film a couple of projects for him. Milos struggles with this for a little while before ultimately accepting, but things seem off about this project from minute one. For starters, the hugging location is actually an abandoned orphanage. And although he's met with an adult co-star, there's a little girl present on set when he gets there. The little girl is taken away by her mother, but once the hugging begins and the cameras start rolling, Video of the little girl eating a popsicle plays on the wall behind them. Things only get worse the next day when Milos shows up to the location and finds his co-star badly beaten, and the little girl is now in the room with them, watching. Milos tries to back out, but he's physically restrained and forced to hit his co-star through the, hugging? Afterwards, Milos insists on leaving the project, but as it turns out, Vukmar has prepared the most compelling argument for why he should stay. Oh wait, did I say compelling argument? I meant that he shows Milos a video of a woman giving birth, and then the newborn baby is immediately, I'm not comfortable with continuing the hugging euphemism after this. We'll just call it assaulted from here on out. Vukmar then drugs Milos, and he wakes up a few days later with no memory of what happened, forcing him to return to the now abandoned location to put the pieces back together. First, he remembers being forced to assault his co-star, all while being encouraged to continue beating her until he ultimately murdered her. And then he continued to, assault her corpse. After that, he finds video footage of himself being assaulted. All of this culminates in him being brought into a room where there are two naked bodies laying out before him, their heads covered, and Milos then proceeds to assault both of them. Eventually, another figure joins in, and it's at this point that Milos discovers that one of the bodies is his unconscious wife, being assaulted by his own brother. The other body, however, the one that he's been assaulting, is his own son. Milos and his now conscious wife proceed to rightfully murder everyone in the room, before Milos knocks her unconscious again and then locks his already traumatized wife and son in a room for what seems like several days. And when he finally does release them, they all seem to silently agree that death would be preferable to living with the things that have been done. And just when you're thinking that this movie can't possibly get any worse, it cuts to other professional huggers showing up to assault their corpses. Okay. What the fuck was the point to any of that? So director Serdan? Fuck it, I'm just gonna put his name on the screen here, insists that this movie isn't just mindless gruesomeness, shock value for the sake of being shocking. Rather, it's all supposed to be commentary on the history of Serbia, and the way that people in power can make you do things that you don't want to do. And confession time. I'm not Serbian, I didn't grow up in Serbia, I don't have any friends or family from Serbia. So if this is pseudo commentary on Serbian life, I'm not going to be the best judge of that. But fortunately for me, in a 2011 interview with IndieWire, the director stated that this is a Serbian movie and that it talks about Serbian problems, but it's also a universal story. So maybe I'm in the clear. The director has also stated that this movie is about how when you scratch the surface on pretty much anything, you'll find something twisted and rotten underneath. Which I'm sure is true in some ways, but I don't know if he needed to go to such extreme lengths to prove it, and I don't know if exploitation horror was the best genre to go about that message. The point of exploitation horror is, well, to be exploitative. If you want to talk about the seedy underbelly of the professional hugging industry, I feel like that message could be communicated so much more effectively without distracting the audience by showing them, newborn stuff. And if you want to talk about the seedy underbelly of the professional hugging industry, there were points in this movie where I thought that's what they were trying to talk about. Specifically, I mean. The topic of professional hugging and violence is actually a very complicated one, much more than you would realize. Some studies have suggested that violence against women is present in as much as 80% of professional hugging. But other peer-reviewed studies from equally reputable sources have put that number as low as 2%. Which, if you haven't noticed, the difference between 80% and 2% is massive. How is that possible? Well, as it turns out, the problem is in just how you define violence. What about something like BDSM? If one consenting adult spanks another consenting adult, then that technically counts as violence to the right viewer, even if both parties enjoy it. And what about something like name calling? If you call your partner a slut, even with their consent, then does that count as degrading towards women? Because of this, it's almost impossible to say just how rampant the problem is, but as the director pointed out, there's always going to be a dark side once you scratch the surface. And although it is, again, very difficult to say just how rampant the problem is, there are some people who believe that consuming violent hugging videos will result in increased violence. This is not necessarily a topic that I feel compelled to weigh in on in this video, but I will say that the way you define violence is going to skew results. I mean, if you're into BDSM, then chances are you're going to be drawn to videos with BDSM, and you might even bring that to the bedroom with your partner. But I'm not going to claim to be an expert on professional hugging. I just noticed a trend in a Serbian film. It almost seemed to be arguing that Milos's past life as a professional hugger was hurting his family today. The first hint was with Milos's wife, who, for the most part, seemed to be very accepting of his past. The only time that she ever expresses any jealousy is near the beginning, when they're watching one of his videos and she asks why he never hugs her in the same way. She then pushes him to treat her like one of his co-stars, and when he does, the experience is so intense that she almost starts to cry before he reins it in. But with his son, the theme is much more overt. It's made clear from the beginning that the son is just getting interested in these matters, and the movie even opens up with him watching one of his father's videos. And to be fair, his parents do seem to be pretty good at being open, honest, and non-judgmental, encouraging him to explore his sexuality in his own way. But of course, all of this culminates in him being the victim of some pretty horrendous violence, in what is probably the most gruesome scene in the movie, but again, I have a hard time with this stuff, so I might be biased. And not to mention, one of the ways that people argue that professional hugging causes violence is through objectification, which does seem to be a common theme throughout the movie. Vukmir is constantly reducing Milos to his, member, referring to it and praising it almost to the point of ignoring his personhood. He's nothing more than what his body can perform. He has no emotions or attachments, but it's exactly when Vukmir plays on Milos's humanity that he loses him. I feel like I have enough here to argue that that's what this movie is about. But considering the director has stated that Milos's profession really doesn't matter, that he could have been a baker or a chemist, and the story would have gone the same way, apparently that wasn't an intended message. The other theme that the director claims this movie is about is the way that political correctness runs our lives, which I see less of in the actual film. I can sort of see that when he talks about the way that the audiences reacted to this film, the way that everyone ignores the themes because they're just so distracted by all the assaulting that's going on. But I mean, come on. You kinda walked into that yourself, director. If you wanted people to focus on the themes, then maybe you should have skipped the newborn assault or something. I feel like it's less political correctness making people object to this film and more, human decency. This wasn't at all a fun viewing experience, but I knew that going in. And all things considered, it's well acted, well paced, and it knows exactly how to get a reaction out of you. The special effects are almost too good at parts, and the violence is definitely effective. And while some exploitation films just feel like they're just trying to be shocking, this one at least did feel like it was about something, even if it was also trying to be shocking. So if you're looking for something to shock and disgust you, there are definitely slower sits than this, which is the highest praise I can give this movie. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click that little bell thingy to get notified, because next time we're keeping up with this disturbing movie theme and talking about something truly disgusting. Sallow or 120 Days of Sodom. And trust me when I say that you won't want to miss it. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and while you're down there, why don't you leave me a comment? Let me know what the most disturbing movie you've ever seen is. Thank you so much for watching, my pets, and I will see you next time. Love you.